during these school days. I should say that I feel honored to be tasked with the job of delivering the closing speech. I have been given 15 minutes to do the job, which is very, very difficult. My speech consists of two parts. In the first part, through an overview, I will show you what a fantastic job all of you have done during these 2 days, apart from delivering your speeches, but listening with utmost patience to what others have done. And then in the second part, I will talk about something that I find necessary to be done in future. And as far as I have seen, you have another conference, the future of education. Of course, there are lots of things that we can do in future in the field of education. This is just one aspect of a perspective, okay? It is not all. Well, I will start with an overview of what we've done. Quite surprisingly, the first keynote speech and the last speech by Gillian are quite appropriate for what I wanted to say here. The first keynote speech was about how to be a good language teacher in the post-digital world with a focus on AI, critical thinking, human intervention, updating teachers, real inclusion, and teachers as analysts. Am I right? Have I missed something?
That was a really good synopsis.
Okay. And the final conclusion of the keynote speech was, every student can learn. But there is some space for discussion here, okay? I have some points to say about it. The second keynote speech was about empowering educators through innovative language learning. Very interesting. We will talk about these innovative days that are presented by you here. In the field of digital language teaching and learning, we talked about, or we listened to our speaker talking about engagement and disengagement in synchronous online classes. And we also talked about well-being, cultural awareness, and collaboration. In the field of AI and language teaching and learning, we tackled AI tools for writing, AI literacy for teachers, AI in assessment with a focus on writing and speaking, glossary generation by ChatGPT, and challenges in AI usage. In the field of studies on language learning, I talked about helping ADHD learners in L2 learning. One of my colleagues here from Australia had a very interesting speech about translanguaging for multilingual students. We dealt with challenges in teaching and learning a third language, English learning for migrant and immigrant students, affective factors in L2 or L3 learning, and in the field of ESP, we had 3 fantastic speeches about teaching English with museums and amateur theater. You see, each of us spoke about one aspect of language teaching, but we learned so much from each other in the course of this wonderful conference. In the field of social media in language teaching and learning, we touched upon neologism in selected social media platforms, the role of social media during the pandemic, and then we touched upon the context of learning, mentoring learners, families, and teachers, and the great roles that each of them play in the context of language learning. And regarding language, culture, and society, we discussed post-colonial perspectives on L2 teaching in multilingual countries, multiliteracy pedagogy for refugees, fate of Anglosphere, and national culture in the context of FL learning and teaching. And Elisabetta talked about funding opportunities, with Luisa talking about certification issues in language education. And you see how diverse they are, each tackling a small part, but very important factor in the process of language education. In innovative language teaching strategies in relation to this topic, we discussed presentation techniques, teaching morphology, extensive reading and collaborative jigsaw activities, holistic education, and then we ended the speeches with very important questions by Jillian. What is changing? And what we need to know and why. This is what connected her speech to what I want to say in the next parts. Well, we shared all these different types of knowledge. We said that as teachers, we are doing this. But who are we doing this for? We are selling the product here. We should see whether our buyers are capable of buying what we are selling here. It seems that as language teachers, given the changes in the field of education and in the political atmosphere of society and economic atmosphere of society, we are dealing with a changing population. So we have to develop a new horizon for dealing with students who cannot be considered minorities anymore. This is what we have to do in the future. We should include them in the process of education. Now, I want to give you some statistics. There are 280 million immigrants in the world. The population of refugees amounts to 43.3 million. 122 million people have been forcibly displaced globally. And we have learners with cognitive or biological deficits, whose number amounts to 240 million, according to the statistics provided by UNICEF. It means that 1 out of each 10 students suffers from some kind of biological or cognitive deficit. And if we put them all together with socially underprivileged or deprived students, we come to the population of forgotten people. Can you just guess what the number of this group of people is? Can you give me a guess? How many people are socially underprivileged or deprived? 3 billion. 3 billion students suffered from the above conditions, plus being socially underprivileged, okay? And among the learners with cognitive or biological deficits, we have learners who suffer from dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, auditory processing disorder, language processing disorder, nonverbal learning disorder, visual perceptual, visual motor deficit, plus ADHD and autistic children. And all of them are disguised in the form of normal children sitting in your classes. I'm just going to explain a little about these conditions, because you look at these students, you wonder why they are not able to learn, because you don't see anything in the appearance. The deficit has very, very deep roots in their cognitive foundations. Some of them are quite clear. I will just give you a little explanation about 4 of them. Dysgraphia is a neurological condition in which someone has difficulty turning their thoughts into written language. Why is your composition so bad? I tell you what the correct form is. Why don't you learn it? It's not because they don't want to, it's because they can't. It's not a disorder, it is a condition. It is a learning difference. It doesn't mean that we cannot teach them anything. It means that we have to work with them differently, provided that we can identify them. Auditory processing disorder causes a disruption in the way an individual's brains understand what they are hearing. You say something, they do something different from what you want, not because they're not listening to you, it's because they understand you in a different way. But they have never been identified as people who suffer from a disorder, and even their parents deny that they are different from other children. Nonverbal learning disorder. Those children who suffer from this disorder have trouble with skills like understanding concepts, finding patterns, organizing information. University students come to the front of the class, they are delivering their speech, you don't understand anything. It seems so disorganized, not because they are disorganized people. They are not capable of granting organization to what they want to present to you. In their own mind, they are completely organized. And the last one, visual, perceptual, or visual motor deficits, affects a child's ability to understand the information they visually see. This impacts a child's ability to read and affects their ability to draw or copy. In note-taking, they are very weak. We have some strikingly shocking statistics here provided by UNESCO. Globally, 1 in 5 children, adolescents, and youth are entirely excluded from education. Nearly 40% of children do not have access to education in their mother tongue, and they have to study because they are displaced, forcibly displaced. They have to study in another language, sitting with normal students in regular classes. Children with disabilities, those 240 million children, continue to be disproportionately excluded from school. Unfortunately, 3/4 of all primary age children, about 9 million, who may never set foot in school are those in socially deprived or underprivileged contexts. And since 2000, an upsurge in migration and displacement has led to a 26% increase of migrant and refugee children globally, making their inclusion in education systems an imperative. But are we prepared to deal with children? Here we talked about some very nice techniques, innovative techniques. But do they work for all children? Maybe they do. But should we teach all of them in the same way? We should be prepared for it. Okay? So we know, do you remember the time of COVID? See, at the beginning, but when it happened, we were not prepared. We didn't know what to do. Now we say, if COVID happens again, then we are, completely prepared. But it is too late. It's over. And you see, we gained a lot of experience during COVID. At least in my own country, all classes returned to physical classes. It means that we threw away all our experience with COVID. Yes. Online classes are only presented in my campus, the electronic campus of the university. But 99% of other universities are in fact denying their achievements and going back to physical education. It is now the time. So, and you see the number of children who are deprived of education is increasing, and they are sitting with our children in normal and regular classes. So what should we do now? It is now time to shift the focus from what the situation is, what we talked about here during these 2 days, and what we are doing right now, to what we should do in future to grant equal access to education to all students from all walks of life with diverse social, biological, racial, religious, economic, and ethnic backgrounds. How can we do that? It seems that one solution is inclusive education. And what is inclusive education? It is about how we develop and design our schools, classrooms, programs, and activities so that all students can participate better. We talk about iPad schools. What if a student does not have an iPad? ChatGPT is filtered in my country, means that we cannot use it. So whatever beautiful techniques you present in relation to using ChatGPT cannot be used in my country unless we pay a lot of money for expensive VPNs. Inclusive education is about ensuring access to quality education for all students by effectively meeting their diverse needs in a way that is responsive, accepting, respectful, and supporting. The word diverse has been used a lot in my slides. Why is it so? Because now we do not refer, for example, to children with disabilities have mentally disordered children. We call these disorders peculiarities, okay? Because we cannot exclude them from schools. We say they are children with certain behavioral and cognitive peculiarities that should be included in education with the help of the teacher. What are the guiding principles of inclusion? Respect, dignity, equality, diversity, human rights, justice, self-determination, mutual responsibility, inclusion, and moral courage. But we can add to them, of course, maybe something is missing here. And what is inclusion in education? Inclusion in the classroom involves creating an environment where every child, irrespective of their race, religion, ethnicity, gender identity, or abilities, feels valued, respected, and safe. So the job of the teacher is very important here. Therefore, it requires educators to actively dismantle stereotypes and biases while cultivating a sense of belonging among all the students in the class, irrespective of the differences that exist between them. We have some inclusion examples here. For example, using group activities, all of us are familiar with them, but there is a choice here. Should we have these group activities organized by the teacher or by the children themselves? We have self-selected groups, teacher-selected groups. Self-selected groups are very good, but there is a danger there. What is the danger? They just choose the likes of themselves. So maybe teacher selection could be a good choice here. Sometimes, of course, we give freedom to our students to sometimes choose their group mates, but sometimes the interference of the teacher is necessary. Incorporating literature and educational material that represent various cultures, language, and perspectives. Translanguaging works here very much, okay? When we are talking about epic, we know that in each culture we have different epical works, poems, and plays. We can include them in our curriculum. Using flexible teaching strategies to accommodate different styles, different preferences, providing accessible resources and accommodations for diverse students, those students with peculiarities. Implementing inclusive language and communication practices that respect students' identities and backgrounds. By inclusive language, we mean the language that the teacher is using in the class. So everybody feels that he or she belongs, is respected, and valued. Addressing sensitive topics such as race, gender, and social justice through open and respectful dialogue. And finally, celebrating cultural inclusion in the classroom through what it is very interesting, cultural holidays and events. It means that when we are teaching in the class, the only occasion that should be celebrated should not be limited to Christmas. There are different New Year celebrations in different cultures. Look at your students and bring all of them into your classes. And finally, I'm going to give you a list of 9 ways to promote inclusion in the classroom that maybe give you some inspiration for your future work in a world that is changing because of the changes in the political and economic situations. Pursue diversity and equity in education. Education for everybody. Employ diverse hiring practices. Is this clear? Yes, means that different teachers from different ethnic groups should be hired by the institute so that some students do not feel that they are discriminated against or segregated. They can identify themselves better with their teachers. Get to know your students, give some time to it. Use diverse curricula and perspectives. Encourage respectful conversations among the students When I was giving my presentation about ADHD students, one of the participants said, do you think it is fair for these normal students in the class to be in the to study in the same class with ADHD students? Is it fair to the ADHD student to be excluded from the class? So when does that so-called normal student learn that people are different from each other? They grow with the same discriminatory behavior. They become adults, and at that time also they bully children with peculiarities. Promote a positive learning environment. Anticipate and navigate sensitive issues. Model inclusive language and practice it at home. And provide alternative means of participation. If a student does not raise a hand in the class, if a student does not write the composition, you can ask them to create an audio file, to feel themselves at home, or to chat with you, or just think in silence. What's wrong with thinking? When we are speaking, does it really mean that we are presenting something new? I think that this is not the case, okay? So we should provide the space for our students to show what they know with our help and learn in new ways. Why? Because we have a diverse population and the future of education demands that we consider these particularities, this diversity, and present some solutions to the problems that we are going to face in the future.
Thank you very much, Roya. That was an excellent closing speech, and Roya reminded us of everything that was discussed during these 2 days, and it was useful, I think, for all of us to see this sort of summary to remember what we talked about. And I was very interested on the topic of inclusion.
I've got to say something.
Yes, please go ahead.
Except for the COVID years, I mean, 1 or 2 years, I have been participating in this conference since 2010. Means that this is the 12th time or 12th, 13th time. And it has turned into an addiction. I love it. I love the atmosphere. And I look at all of you like a family. I have known you from different parts of the world in this conference. And I think I owe it all to Elisabetta and one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it's not only the conference, the snacks are wonderful, the lunch was wonderful, the excursion, and everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming back. There are so many of you who come back every year, and in spite of all the problems that some of you had to face, I mean, Bushra just mentioned the problems, visa issues, distance, but in spite of that, many of you come back, and it's beautiful to see you here again every year. And like Roya just said, I feel we are part of a family, and some of you have been collaborating after you met here. So I think, so thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for helping building bridges in a world that we don't know where it is going now. But I think that if there were more people like you, like us, the world would be a better place. Okay, thank you very much. And before we close, I would like to thank, first of all, Valeria, because Valeria was so building everything, and she's an excellent.
I think you have to stand up for Valeria.
Yes. Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Valeria. Thank you very much. And also, I would like to thank the rest of Pixel staff, who's now a little bit everywhere, but thank you. Okay, now it's time for the cocktail, so we can go to the other room and have our last moments together, and with some of you, we'll see you.